Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Patsu and I'm an illustrator. Today's video, I'm going to be doing a sketchbook session and I'm going to be filling up this entire page and drawing using colored pencils. So this page is actually a part of another sketchbook session. It's a longer and bigger video where I basically finish my current sketchbook, or try to at least fill in some pages, some unfinished drawings, or rework some drawings that I didn't like in particular. But when I got to this page and when I finished it, I found that I really liked it and didn't want to just stick it into a drawing compilation. Basically, I found that this page warranted its own video, which is why we're here. So I guess for today's agenda, I will be explaining my thought process while practicing drawing using colored pencils. Colored pencils is a medium that I've been practicing the past few months, the past few years, I would say. And I think by now I've gotten confident with the medium and that I've learned the basic fundamentals and I've taught myself some techniques. And I hope you can get some information and knowledge as you watch this video. Drawing with colored pencils is essentially drawing with pencils, but with consideration for color theory. I am looking at a reference photo of a white rabbit, and in the photo, I detected that the white rabbit has blue midtones. And so I started shading using a very light blue colored pencil. I'm basically sculpting the form of the rabbit, and I'm not really overthinking the shading part of it. I wanted to keep the midtone as simplified as possible, so it's just a very rough hatching technique, I would say. Again, just trying to establish the shape and form of the figure. And then what I did next was layer on a couple of warm colors such as yellows and oranges. In the reference photo, the rabbit is basking in direct sunlight, and so the light reflected on its white fur is warm despite the blue midtones. I think the best way to blend colors using colored pencils, especially contrasting colors, is to apply very light pressure when drawing. Be very light with your pencil strokes. Like most traditional media, it's best to layer the material on top of itself to achieve your desired color or tone. It's almost the same principle as watercolor, where you have to start with light colors, which are then layered with darker pigments. Since I'm using wax-based pencils, it would be hard for me to erase the parts where I need highlights or where I need seamless blending to happen. It's also hard if I want to smudge for blending. So if you practice long enough, you can control your pencil pressure and you won't even need transition colors to blend, because that's also an option. Although I usually don't use transition colors since I like to keep my color palette limited when I'm drawing. Okay, so now that we got the technical aspect of my art process out of the way, I guess I can ramble about anything starting from now. I kind of just want to chat about what the deal is about this sketchbook page and what inspired it, um, and just have a casual chat session, I suppose. Um, This page is actually inspired by Pinterest boards. I've always seen so many artists draw pages of their sketchbooks or full illustrations of things they found aesthetically pleasing on Pinterest, and they kind of draw from reference and practice drawing from there. And I kind of want to try my hand at that. Uh, Although I've never actually used Pinterest myself. Well, maybe not never. Maybe I've used it once for a reference photo, but I don't really indulge myself in. I don't spend a lot of time curating my own Pinterest board. Although I'm very fascinated with the subculture or a niche of collecting aesthetically pleasing images on the internet and curating them to almost create a vibe and, pinning them to a mood board, which makes sense because it's called a Pinterest board. So that's the inspiration for this page. I just wanna, I guess the keyword for this entire page and all the drawings I did in this video is picnic, outdoors, afternoon. I guess that's the vibe for today's sketchbook session. Okay, so I'm kind of going in a bit of a tangent here, but I just want to preface that today's video is largely unscripted, which is so bizarre to me because I'm not used to speaking into a mic unprompted, unprepared, no script. I don't have the proficiency for like speaking spontaneously, I guess. And especially not in English. My main language is Filipino or Tagalog, and I guess my English speaking skills have atrophied. That's terrible to think about, but yeah, I'm just trying to get used to just rambling into a mic and just be casual and express myself and my artistic vision, quote unquote. And I think it's because I enjoy watching artists on YouTube. And usually when I'm watching them, I'm also working on my stuff. I'm working on my own projects. And I find that I'm more inspired to be artistic when I'm listening to other artists ramble about their hyperfixations, when they do sketchbook tours and explain their art processes and whatnot. And I guess I want to employ that in my future videos more just because it's more interesting on number one, and it just keeps the attention span of viewers more than just your basic standard speed paints or drawing time lapses. I guess I'm also asking you as a viewer, which do you prefer? Like, are you fine with the voiceover? Do you not mind the YouTube no copyright free audio music? Or are you fine with the subtitles? Honestly, the work I put into recording voiceovers and typing subtitles is relatively the same. They're both tedious to me because number one, again, I have trouble being spontaneous in speaking in English, and number two, it is very hard to write subtitles. I mean, writing itself, I love writing, and especially when it's about indulging about my work, but it is difficult and it takes more effort to convert that kind of writing into a video editing format because you have to consider timing, keyframes, and it's more work, I would say. But yeah, let me know which you prefer to see more in the future. I'll do my best to cater to the majority. Also, I just finished 2 illustrations of cakes, and I know I didn't go in depth as far as explaining my art process when drawing the cakes, but I think it's because I didn't like how they turned out. Not that they're bad, but they turned out more cartoonish than I had intended to, as compared to the rendering on the rabbit. But I think they're still a successful pair of illustration. Like I love it. But now I'm moving on to a portrait of a girl. I used a reference photo for this drawing. I always get my reference photos from unsplash.com if you're wondering. I kind of approached this drawing a little differently than the previous 3 because I found that the reference photo had high contrast. The light areas were very light and the shadows were very dark, which meant I kind of had trouble distinguishing the undertones or the colors of the shadows, whether they're on the cooler or warmer side. But then I remembered I was doing this whole aesthetic page thing, so I just stuck with a cooler toned shadow like the rest of the drawings. A mint blue undertone to be exact. Like I said, I was hesitant to lay the shadows because I was unsure, so I laid the mid-tones for the light part of her profile first. Um, I started shading the contours of her face. I didn't want to just leave the parts of it super bright, even though the model in the reference photo is very pale. I don't like leaving parts of the canvas blank or white or the color of the page, uh, just because I feel like even the palest color still has a tint of color in there. And the same applies with darker colors. I feel like there's so much more color than just white and black. So I like to apply that to all my artistic practice, regardless of the medium I'm using. I'm really taking my time with layering the colors on this drawing. As you can see, there's really no high contrast so far. A lot of the shadows are still on their mid-tone phase. Although I did add some browns to the mint shadows, that's me building up the darker shading of the illustration. And I'm learning not to jump to the darkest colors immediately, just because I feel like if you're smart with how you choose your undertones and how you establish these foundations, it will appear in the final look of the drawing. So all the mint blue that you're seeing that I'm kind of hiding behind the browns, you will see tints of it in the final look. I think it's worth it to take your time with the layering and being meticulous with the blending and shading, because all these vibrant colors that don't make sense right now, they will complete the picture in the end, because in the real world, a lot of things are not just one color. Especially with human skin or flesh, it's not really just a ton of beige or browns. There's a lot of undertones there that make it look more realistic and more humane, I guess. I don't know, it just makes your illustrations more three-dimensional and grounded in reality, even though it's completely stylized. And also for this particular image, the reference photo was obviously in a warmer tone because the model is under direct sunlight. And so I thought the best way to provide contrast and the smartest color for the undertone is a blue, because realistically that's how light would interact with this subject. This figure would absorb warm light and then cast cool shadows. Another thing I kind of want to just breeze through is focal point and learning how and when to invest your effort in detailing. For this specific drawing, you can see that in her profile, only her right eye is prominent and her left eye is hidden in the shadows. You don't have to stress yourself out and invest your time in detailing and rendering things that could just be left out in general. Um, there's already an impression of an eye there, and that's enough. I think it's important. I think it's important to give your illustrations some room to breathe. There's a principle in drawing that I can't recall at the moment that specifically talks about that. It's about not drawing everything, not rendering everything. For example, in this illustration, if I draw every single strand of hair on her head, that would be information overload for my brain and the viewer's brain. I think one of the things that I'm learning about art in general and principles is learning where to place visual rest in my drawings, just so the viewers can't get too exhausted looking at extensive detail. And now for the final illustration of this sketchbook session, it's a cute puppy. I realized when I started this page that I don't really draw a lot of animals in this sketchbook, and I needed to fix that. I don't even do like the fundamentals, study of horses and anatomy like that, which I don't intend to. I don't want this sketchbook to be too technical at all or too, just dry. I still want it to be cutesy and fun, which is why I chose a puppy, which is a crossover from like drawing from life, but also stylized enough for me to actually enjoy drawing and not feel like it's homework. The drawing process for this puppy is similar to the rabbit, although I didn't do the initial sketch using a graphite, which I did with the bunny. I went straight for an orange colored pencil, and I think that worked best for this illustration. One thing I learned while drawing this puppy is that baby animals are very hard to draw. I think it's because how do you navigate drawing something that exists in real life while also retaining its unbelievable cuteness? Does that make sense? Like, how do you translate something with realistic and very much grounded features and still stylize it and not just enough that it doesn't look like a stuffed animal? So I guess that was my biggest concern as far as this subject goes, but I think I did just fine. I really like the rendering and how it looks. I think the cuteness is intact without it looking too cartoonish. One thing I also noticed is my maybe subconscious aversion to the black colored pencil or black color in general. I mean, I think it's a myth that you should avoid using deep blacks when drawing or painting, just because I think you're probably missing very dark values if you purposely avoid it. But I think in my art in general, or this page specifically, I figured that I could achieve the darkest element of the image if I could just mix and match the colors. So I suppose I could have used more blacks in here, but I think it's fine. Like, I think this piece would be very out of place if I added more contrast to it compared to the rest of the page. So I'm pretty satisfied with how this turned out. And this is the finished page. I thoroughly enjoyed finishing these drawings. I think this is one of my most personally rewarding sketchbook spreads just because I exceeded my own expectations regarding what I want to draw and some artistic goals I wanted to practice. I also think I've improved immensely with drawing using colored pencils, and I'm glad I took the time to actually finish this page. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you again next time.